Today, we have two horror stories for you to fall asleep to. They have calming rain sounds, so you can relax and fall asleep more easily. Sleep well. The mountains loomed like ancient titans, their jagged peaks piercing the heavens, shrouded in a veil of mist that clung to the air like a lover's embrace. Beneath the watchful gaze of these silent sentinels lay a hidden sanctuary, a cabin nestled amidst the dense embrace of the forest, its weathered facade a testament to the passage of time. It was here, in this remote wilderness, that Tom sought refuge from the chaos of the world, a solitary haven where he hoped to find solace and inspiration amidst the whispering shadows. With each step through the thick blanket of snow, he felt the weight of his burdens slowly melting away, replaced by a sense of quiet anticipation. The cabin beckoned to him like a siren's call, its windows aglow with the warm flicker of firelight dancing within. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, Tom stepped into the embrace of the unknown, his breath forming ghostly tendrils in the frigid air. Inside, the cabin exuded a sense of timeless tranquility, a refugee frozen in time, untouched by the outside world. The scent of pine mingled with the crackle of the fire, casting a spell of enchantment upon the weary traveler. As Tom settled into his new surroundings, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, a prickling sensation at the nape of his neck, like the brush of unseen fingers against his skin. But he dismissed it as mere paranoia, attributing it to the isolation of the wilderness and his own overactive imagination. Night fell like a velvet curtain, cloaking the forest in a blanket of darkness. Alone in the cabin, Tom felt a sense of unease creeping into his bones, a whisper of doubt that lingered on the edges of his consciousness. And then, as if in response to his silent fears, the whispers began, a soft susurrus that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Words whispered on the edge of hearing, teasing and tantalizing, yet maddeningly elusive. Tom tried to rationalize away the voices, chalking them up to the wind playing tricks through the trees. But deep down, he knew that something sinister lurked in the shadows, a presence that defied explanation, lurking just beyond the edge of perception. And so, as the fire dwindled to embers and the night stretched on, Tom found himself ensnared in a web of uncertainty, a stranger in a land haunted by whispers, with no escape inside. The cabin seemed to hold its breath as night descended like a shroud, enveloping everything in darkness. Tom sat by the crackling fire, his eyes fixed on the dancing flames, but his mind wandered to the unsettling events of the day. The whispers had grown louder, more insistent, echoing through the timbered walls like the plaintive cries of lost souls. Tom's skepticism wavered with each passing moment, his rational mind struggling to reconcile the inexplicable with the tangible. Outside, the forest loomed like a silent sentinel, its secrets hidden beneath a blanket of snow. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faintest hint of something otherworldly, a presence that lingered just beyond the edge of perception. With a shiver, Tom rose from his seat and paced the length of the cabin, his footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and turning in a macabre ballet, while the fire cast flickering patterns across the floor. Suddenly, a movement caught Tom's eye, a glimmer of movement in the corner of the room, fleeting and ephemeral. He turned, heart pounding in his chest, but there was nothing there save for the empty expanse of the cabin. Doubt gnawed at Tom's resolve, planting seeds of fear in his mind. He tried to shake off the feeling of unease, but it clung to him like a second skin, suffocating him with its suffocating embrace. And then, just as he was about to surrender to the darkness, a voice whispered in his ear, a soft, melodic sound that sent shivers down his spine. Tom froze, his breath catching in his throat, as the voice spoke words that chilled him to the bone. "Leave this place," it whispered, a hint of desperation tinging its ethereal tones, "before it's too late." Tom's blood ran cold as the realization dawned upon him. He was not alone in the cabin. Something lingered in the shadows, something ancient and malevolent, watching and waiting with bated breath. With a trembling hand, Tom reached for the door, his mind reeling with fear and uncertainty. But as he stepped out into the night, the whispers followed him, a haunting refrain that echoed in the depths of his soul. And so, as the darkness swallowed him whole, Tom knew that he had ventured into a realm beyond his understanding, a realm where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, and the whispers of the night held sway over all who dared to listen. The cabin stood silent and brooding as Tom returned from his nocturnal vigil, the echoes of the whispers still ringing in his ears like a haunting melody. He hesitated at the threshold, a sense of foreboding weighing heavy upon his shoulders. But the lure of warmth and safety drew him back inside. With each passing moment, the supernatural phenomena intensified, casting the cabin in an eerie light. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes, while the air crackled with a palpable energy, a sense of otherness that permeated every corner of the room. Tom's rational mind rebelled against the onslaught of the inexplicable, searching desperately for a logical explanation to cling to. But the evidence of a haunting was undeniable. The cryptic messages etched into the walls, the whispers that echoed through the night, the sense of being watched by unseen eyes. Driven by a newfound determination, Tom set out to unravel the mystery of the cabin's dark past, hoping to uncover the truth behind the whispers that haunted his every waking moment. He combed through dusty tomes and weathered journals, piecing together fragments of a story long forgotten. As he delved deeper into the secrets of the cabin, Tom uncovered tales of tragedy and despair, a family torn apart by greed and betrayal, their restless spirits condemned to wander the wilderness for all eternity. And at the heart of it all stood the enigmatic figure of the cabin's former owner, a man consumed by darkness, his soul bound to the land he once called home. But even as Tom unearthed the truth, the malevolent presence that lurked in the shadows refused to be silenced. It toyed with his mind, twisting his thoughts and manipulating his perceptions until he could no longer trust his own senses. And so, as the night wore on and the whispers grew louder, Tom found himself teetering on the brink of madness, a lone figure adrift in a sea of darkness with no shore in sight. But still, he pressed on, driven by a burning desire to confront the entity that held him captive in its thrall. For he knew that only by facing his deepest fears could he hope to break free from the shackles of the past and emerge victorious from the darkness that threatened to consume him whole. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow upon the snowy landscape as Tom ventured into the forest, his footsteps muffled by the soft blanket of snow. The trees loomed overhead like ancient guardians, their twisted branches reaching out to ensnare the unwary traveler. With each step, Tom felt the weight of the forest pressing down upon him, a tangible presence that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Shadows danced amidst the trees, their movements fluid and sinuous, as if guided by some unseen hand. But Tom pressed on, his resolve unwavering despite the overwhelming sense of unease that gnawed at his insides. He had come too far to turn back now, too close to uncovering the truth behind the haunting that plagued the cabin. As he ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, Tom's senses were assailed by a cacophony of sound, the mournful cry of the wind, the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of a lone wolf. But beneath it all, he could hear another sound, a soft, melodic hum that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the earth. Following the sound like a siren's call, Tom soon found himself standing before a clearing bathed in moonlight, a place of ethereal beauty, untouched by the ravages of time. And there, amidst the whispering trees, he saw her, a figure cloaked in shadow, her features obscured by the darkness. For a moment, Tom hesitated, unsure of what he would find lurking within the shadows. But then, with a sense of determination burning in his chest, he stepped forward, his heart pounding in his ears. "Who are you?" he called out, his voice echoing in the stillness of the night. "What do you want from me?" The figure remained silent, her form swaying gently in the breeze. And then, with a voice like silk, she spoke, a single word that sent a shiver down Tom's spine. "Freedom," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustle of leaves. "Freedom from the chains that bind us, from the darkness that holds us captive." Tom's mind reeled at her words, his thoughts spinning in a maelstrom of confusion and fear. But then, as if guided by some unseen force, he reached out a trembling hand, his fingers brushing against the cold, unyielding surface of the darkness. And in that moment, as their worlds collided in a symphony of light and shadow, Tom knew that he had ventured into a realm beyond his understanding, a realm where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, and the whispers of the night held sway over all who dared to listen. The air crackled with tension as Tom stood on the precipice of the unknown, his heart hammering in his chest like a drumbeat heralding the coming storm. Before him loomed the shadowy figure cloaked in darkness and mystery, her presence both alluring and terrifying. With each passing moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting with bated anticipation for the inevitable clash between light and darkness, between truth and illusion. And in the depths of Tom's soul, a fire burned bright, a spark of defiance amidst the encroaching darkness. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice ringing out clear and strong despite the fear that threatened to consume him whole. "What do you want from me?" The figure remained silent, her form swaying gently in the breeze as if caught in the ebb and flow of some unseen current. But there was a weight to her presence, a gravity that pulled at Tom's very essence, drawing him inexorably closer to the edge of oblivion. And then, with a voice like silk, she spoke, a single word that sent a shiver down Tom's spine, a word that echoed in the recesses of his mind like a forgotten memory. "Freedom," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustle of leaves. "Freedom from the chains that bind us, from the darkness that holds us captive." Tom's mind reeled at her words, his thoughts spinning in a maelstrom of confusion and doubt. But then, with a newfound sense of purpose burning in his chest, he stepped forward, his gaze locked with hers in a silent challenge. "I will not be your pawn," he declared, his voice resonating with a strength that surprised even him. "I will not let you control me, manipulate me, consume me." And in that moment, as their worlds collided in a symphony of light and shadow, Tom knew that he had ventured into a realm beyond his understanding, a realm where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, and the whispers of the night held sway over all who dared to listen. With a final surge of determination, Tom reached out a trembling hand, his fingers brushing against the darkness that surrounded him. And in that instant, the world exploded into a kaleidoscope of light and sound as the barrier between worlds shattered like glass, and Tom stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The dawn broke like a promise on the horizon, casting its golden light upon the snow-covered landscape as Tom emerged from the depths of the forest, his soul heavy with the weight of the night's revelations. Behind him, the cabin stood silent and brooding, its secrets buried beneath layers of snow and shadow. As he made his way back to civilization, Tom felt a sense of relief wash over him, a feeling of liberation born from the knowledge that he had faced his deepest fears and emerged victorious. But beneath the veneer of triumph, a seed of doubt lingered, a nagging suspicion that the darkness that had plagued the cabin was not so easily vanquished. With each step, Tom felt the weight of the world lift from his shoulders, replaced by a sense of clarity and purpose. The whispers that had haunted his every waking moment fell silent, their siren song fading into the recesses of memory. And yet, as he glanced back at the cabin one final time, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that he was leaving something behind, a part of himself that had been forever altered by the ordeal. But he knew that he could not linger in the shadows, that he had to press forward, ever forward, towards the light. And so, with a final glance over his shoulder, Tom turned his back on the cabin and set out into the world, his footsteps echoing in the silence of the wilderness. Behind him, the whispers of the night lingered on the edge of hearing, a haunting refrain that whispered of secrets yet untold. But Tom paid them no heed, for he knew that he had faced his demons and emerged stronger for it. And as he disappeared into the distance, the cabin stood silent and empty, its walls holding the echoes of a story that would forever remain untold. The moon hung like a pale specter in the night sky, casting a silvery glow over the abandoned asylum. Emily Reed stood at the threshold, her fingers curling around the rusted iron bars of the gate. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, and a sense of foreboding settled over her like a heavy shroud. With each creak of the gate as it swung open, Emily felt as though she was stepping into the pages of a long, forgotten nightmare. Weeds choked the courtyard, their tendrils snaking up through cracks in the cobblestones, reclaiming the land inch by inch. The asylum loomed before her, its once grand facade now marred by years of neglect and abandonment. As Emily approached the crumbling entrance, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, and the wind whispered secrets she dared not comprehend. But still, she pressed on, driven by a relentless curiosity and a gnawing sense of obligation. The doors groaned in protest as Emily pushed them open, revealing a yawning darkness beyond. The air was thick and stale, suffused with the musty scent of decay. For a moment, she hesitated on the threshold, her heart pounding in her chest like a drumbeat in the silence. But then, with a steeling of her resolve, Emily stepped over the threshold and into the asylum's embrace. The darkness swallowed her whole, enveloping her in its icy embrace. The only sound was the echo of her footsteps on the cracked linoleum floor. Each step, a reminder of the countless souls who had walked these halls before her. She moved cautiously, her flashlight cutting through the darkness like a beacon in the night. The corridors stretched out before her like a labyrinth, twisting and turning with no discernible pattern. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like tattered banners, and the walls were adorned with peeling paint and faded graffiti. With each step, Emily felt the weight of history pressing down upon her. This place was a monument to suffering and despair, a testament to the cruelty of the human spirit. But still, she pressed on, driven by a desperate need to uncover the truth. And as she ventured deeper into the asylum's depths, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Eyes peered out from the darkness, their gaze cold and unrelenting. Shadows flitted through the corridors, darting just out of reach. But still, she pressed on, her determination unyielding. For Emily Reed knew that the only way to lay her family's demons to rest was to confront them head on, no matter the cost. And so, with each step, she moved closer to the heart of the darkness, ready to face whatever horrors lay in wait. The asylum's corridors stretched out before Emily like a maze of shadows and secrets, each step echoing through the empty halls. The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay, and a sense of unease settled over her like a heavy cloak. Her flashlight cut through the darkness, casting long shadows that danced across the peeling wallpaper. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like veils of silk, swaying gently in the stagnant air. Emily's footsteps echoed off the walls, the sound reverberating through the silence like a mournful lament. As she moved deeper into the asylum, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was not alone. Whispers brushed against her ears like the faintest breeze, words whispered by voices long since silenced. She turned, but there was no one there, only the empty corridors stretching out before her like yawning chasms. The flickering light of her flashlight revealed glimpses of the asylum's dark past. Rusted restraints bolted to the walls, shattered glass littering the floor, and faded photographs of patients long forgotten. Each room held its own secrets, its own horrors waiting to be uncovered. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she moved further into the depths of the asylum. The darkness seemed to press in on her from all sides, suffocating her with its weight. But still, she pressed on, driven by a relentless need to uncover the truth. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the darkness, a soft scraping noise, like nails on a chalkboard. Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat as she strained to listen. There it was again, faint but unmistakable, coming from somewhere deep within the asylum's bowels. With a trembling hand, Emily tightened her grip on the flashlight and moved towards the source of the sound. Each step felt like a betrayal, the floorboards groaning beneath her weight. But still, she pressed on, drawn forward by a curiosity she could not deny. And then, as she turned a corner, she saw it, a flicker of movement in the darkness, just out of reach. Emily's heart leaped into her throat as she trained her flashlight on the spot, her hand shaking with fear. But there was nothing there, only the empty corridors stretching out before her like a labyrinth of despair. And yet Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that unseen eyes followed her every move. With a shiver, she forced herself to continue, pushing aside the fear that threatened to consume her. For Emily Reed knew that she had come too far to turn back now, that the truth she sought lay just beyond her reach. And so, with a deep breath and a steadying of her nerves, she plunged deeper into the darkness, ready to face whatever horrors awaited her. Emily's footsteps echoed through the dimly lit corridors of the asylum, each one a solemn reminder of the souls who had walked these halls before her. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and a sense of unease hung like a pall over the abandoned building. As she ventured deeper into the asylum, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, and the faint echo of whispers lingered in the air. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest as she sought to escape the oppressive weight of the darkness. But then, just as she rounded a corner, she saw him, a figure shrouded in darkness, his eyes gleaming like coals in the night. Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat as she trained her flashlight on the spot where he stood. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling with fear. But the figure only laughed, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. "I am Dr. Nathaniel Blackwood," he replied, his voice like ice against her skin. "And this asylum is my domain." Emily's blood ran cold at the sound of his name. She had heard the stories of Blackwood's cruel experiments, of the suffering he had inflicted upon his patients in the name of science. And now, it seemed, his spirit lingered within these walls, trapped for all eternity. "What do you want from me?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Blackwood's eyes gleamed with malice as he stepped forward, his form flickering in the dim light. "I want what I have always wanted, subjects for my experiments, and you, dear Emily, will make the perfect specimen." With that, he vanished into the darkness, leaving Emily alone in the silence. She stood there for a moment, her mind reeling with fear and confusion. But then, with a steely resolve, she shook off her doubts and pressed on, determined to uncover the truth about Blackwood's twisted experiments, no matter the cost. Emily's footsteps echoed through the deserted corridors of the asylum as she delved deeper into its dark heart. The air was heavy with the weight of the past, and every shadow seemed to hold a whispered secret. But Emily pressed on, her determination unwavering, despite the chill that crept down her spine. As she explored further, Emily encountered more of the asylum's spectral inhabitants, tortured souls trapped between this world and the next. They whispered to her in voices, both plaintive and haunting, their words laden with the weight of untold suffering. Among them, Emily sensed the presence of Dr. Nathaniel Blackwood, his malevolent spirit lurking in the shadows like a predator, waiting to strike. She felt his eyes upon her, cold and calculating as he watched her every move with a twisted fascination. But Emily refused to be cowed by Blackwood's presence. Instead, she sought answers from the other spirits haunting the asylum, the forgotten victims of his experiments, their voices a chorus of anguish and despair. Through their whispered confessions, Emily pieced together the truth about Blackwood's atrocities, the cruel and inhumane treatments inflicted upon his patients in the name of scientific progress. She learned of the lives he had destroyed in his quest for knowledge and the depths to which he had sunk in his pursuit of power. But amidst the horror, Emily also discovered glimmers of humanity, stories of resilience and courage in the face of unimaginable suffering. She learned of the bonds forged between patients, of small acts of kindness that had provided solace in the darkest of times. And as she listened to their tales, Emily felt a connection to these lost souls, a shared understanding of the pain and suffering that had brought them to this place. For in their stories, she saw reflections of her own struggles, her own fears, her own capacity for resilience in the face of adversity. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Emily resolved to confront Blackwood once and for all, to put an end to his reign of terror and free the spirits trapped within the asylum's walls. With a steely determination, she set out to find him, her heart burning with a fierce sense of purpose. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she ventured deeper into the asylum, her footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. The air was thick with tension, each breath a struggle against the oppressive weight of the darkness. But still, she pressed on, driven by a fierce determination to confront Dr. Nathaniel Blackwood and put an end to his reign of terror. As she moved through the labyrinthine halls, Emily could feel Blackwood's presence growing stronger, his malevolent aura suffusing the air like a toxic fog. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, and the faint echo of whispers taunted her from the darkness. But Emily refused to be intimidated. With each step, her resolve hardened, her determination unyielding in the face of adversity. She knew that she was the only one who could stop Blackwood, the only one who could put an end to his twisted experiments and free the spirits trapped within the asylum's walls. And so, with a sense of grim purpose, Emily pressed on, her flashlight cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope in the night. She moved quickly now, her senses on high alert as she searched for any sign of Blackwood's presence. Suddenly, a door loomed before her, its surface weathered and worn with age. Emily hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the handle as she braced herself for what lay beyond. With a deep breath, she pushed open the door and stepped into the room beyond. What she found inside took her breath away. The room was a twisted maze of metal and machinery, its walls lined with rows of cages containing the remnants of Blackwood's experiments. Grotesque figures lurked in the shadows, their forms twisted and contorted by years of torment. But there, at the far end of the room, stood Blackwood himself, his eyes gleaming with malice as he watched her approach. Emily felt a surge of fear grip her heart, but she refused to back down. With a steely resolve, she confronted Blackwood, her voice ringing out in the darkness. "You will not win, Blackwood," she declared, her words a defiant challenge to the darkness that threatened to consume her. "I will put an end to your reign of terror, and I will free the spirits you have imprisoned within these walls." Blackwood's laughter echoed through the room, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Emily's spine. "You cannot defeat me, Emily Reed," he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "I am beyond your comprehension, beyond your feeble attempts to stop me." But Emily refused to be deterred. With a surge of determination, she unleashed a torrent of energy, channeling the spirits of the asylum's victims to aid her in her battle against Blackwood. With each passing moment, her power grew stronger, her resolve unshakable in the face of darkness. And then, with a final burst of energy, Emily unleashed a wave of light that engulfed Blackwood, banishing him from the asylum forever. As his malevolent spirit faded into nothingness, Emily felt a sense of peace wash over her, knowing that she had finally put an end to the darkness that had plagued the asylum for so long. With a weary sigh, Emily turned and made her way back through the corridors of the asylum, her heart lightened by the knowledge that she had succeeded in her quest. As she stepped out into the cool night air, she looked back at the asylum one last time, knowing that its dark secrets would haunt her no more. The asylum loomed behind Emily like a specter in the night as she stepped out into the cool embrace of the moonlit forest. The air was crisp and refreshing, a stark contrast to the suffocating darkness that had engulfed her within its walls. As she walked away from the asylum, a sense of peace washed over her, banishing the lingering echoes of fear and despair. The forest around her seemed to come alive with the sound of chirping crickets and rustling leaves, a symphony of life that filled her with a sense of wonder and awe. Above her, the stars twinkled like diamonds in the sky, their light casting a soft glow over the landscape below. With each step, Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders, the burden of the past slipping away like water through her fingers. She had faced her fears, confronted the darkness within, and emerged victorious. And now, as she walked away from the asylum, she knew that she was free, free from the ghosts that had haunted her, free from the secrets that had bound her, free to forge her own path forward. As she walked, Emily reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment, the twists and turns, the highs and lows, the moments of triumph and despair. She had faced horrors beyond imagining, confronted the demons of her past, and emerged stronger for it. And though the scars of her ordeal would always remain, she knew that they were a testament to her strength and resilience. As the first light of dawn began to break on the horizon, Emily paused to take in the beauty of the world around her. The forest was bathed in a soft golden light, the air alive with the promise of a new day. And as she looked out at the world spread out before her, Emily felt a sense of hope swell within her heart. For though the journey had been long and arduous, she knew that it had been worth it, worth the pain, worth the sacrifice, worth every moment of fear and uncertainty. For in the end, she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more alive than ever before. With a smile on her lips and a lightness in her step, Emily turned her back on the asylum and the darkness that had once consumed her. Ahead of her lay a world of endless possibilities, a future filled with hope, and the promise of a new beginning. And as she walked into the dawn, Emily knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them head on, armed with the knowledge that she had conquered her demons and emerged victorious.